Hey y'all, this is Michael Franti, and this is WMNF Tampa.
This is an important election year. To help inform you about voting, the candidates, and the issues on the ballot, the WMNF News team has partnered with 10 other public media organizations around the state to create a 2024 Florida Voter Guide.
You can find it on our website at WMNF.org/vote. It has information about all the candidates for the U.S. Senate and House and the Florida Senate and House.
Candidates provide their positions on issues ranging from the cost of insurance to the environment to how they'll vote on the proposed constitutional amendments. You will also find a tool to help locate the district you vote in, as well as how to register to vote and how to find your polling location.
Tell a friend about WMNF.org/vote. It has information about candidates and issues in the 2024 elections in Florida.
You are tuned to Community Speaks here on WMNF Radio 88.5 FM. This is the Public Affairs program coming at you at noon each Monday. My name is Patro Mavili, your host for Community Speaks. This is Labor Day, and that's the fun part about working on Mondays is that I get to spend major holidays with you. So we're going to be taking your telephone calls and listening and reading your emails. DJ Spaceship stands ready to take your telephone calls for Community Speaks. And as I said, here on this Labor Day in the USA, strike actions are ongoing, and there's a general strike protest underway in Israel as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is criticized for his failures to prevent attacks and free the hostages before they're all killed. And as I said, this is Community Speaks here on this Labor Day. We're going to listen to some speeches from Shawn Fain, who is the president of the United Auto Workers, and maybe a little bit of Sean O'Brien. He's the general president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Fain spoke at the Democratic National Convention while O'Brien addressed the RNC. Now, the UAW filed federal labor charges on August 13th against former President Trump and billionaire businessman Elon Musk for comments made during an online interview in which Trump praised Musk for threatening to and illegally firing striking workers. And so there's going to be some fallout, but one thing that does show is the growing power of unionized workers. And so during his primetime speech at the Democratic National Convention, the United Auto Workers Union president, Shawn Fain, took off his blazer to expose a T-shirt emblazoned with the phrase, "Trump is a scab. Vote Harris." So we'll take a listen to that speech right away here on Community Speaks as we prepare to take your telephone calls and talk about the state of workers right now. Cross fields, as you've heard, hotel workers are striking today. And so there's a lot to talk about. There's federal workers who are worried about a return of Trump to the White House and what might happen to their jobs. We'll also analyze the artificial intelligence impact on jobs. So keep it tuned. Let's listen to the full speech by UAW President Shawn Fain as he talked to the DNC here on Community Speaks.
Here to support Vice President Kamala Harris.
All right. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Good evening, America, and good evening to the people that make this world move, the working class. On behalf of 1 million active and retired members of the UAW, I am honored to support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to be our next president and vice president. say thank you to Joe Biden for making history by walking the picket line with the UAW.
You're listening to the speech from Shawn Fain here on Community Speaks. And this is an opportunity also to take your telephone calls and your emails. So keep it tuned right here to Community Speaks.
For the UAW and for working class people everywhere, this election comes down to one question. Which side are you on? On one side, we have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who have stood shoulder to shoulder with the working class. On the other side, we have Trump and Vance, two lapdogs for the billionaire class who only serve themselves. So for us in the labor movement, it's real simple. Kamala Harris is one of us. She's a fighter for the working class. And Donald Trump is a scam. That's not just my opinion, that's a fact. All we have to do is look at the track record. When Donald Trump was president, corporate America ran wild. Donald Trump did not bring back the auto industry. When Donald Trump was president, auto plants closed. Trump did nothing. Trump told workers in Lordstown, Ohio, that he would be bringing all the auto jobs back. And Trump did nothing. In 2019, General Motor workers went on strike for 40 days for good jobs and a better life. And Trump did nothing. Talk is cheap. But in 2019, you know who was on the picket line standing shoulder to shoulder with auto workers? I'll give you a clue. Her initials are Kamala Harris. In 2023, who helped bring jobs back to Lordstown, Ohio? Kamala Harris. And in 2024, who will stand with the working class in our fight for justice? Kamala Harris. And that's the difference. Donald Trump is all talk, and Kamala Harris walks the walk. Woo. In the words of the great American poet, Nellie, it's getting hot in here. It's hot in here. It's hot in here because you're fired up and you're fed up, and the American working class is fired up and fed up. The American working class is in a fight for our lives. And if you don't believe me, just last night, blue-collar workers, the UAW members at Cornell University had to walk out on strike for a better life because they're fighting corporate greed. And our only hope is to attack corporate greed head on. Corporate greed turns blue-collar blood, sweat, and tears into Wall Street stock buybacks and CEO jackpots. It causes inflation. It hurts workers. It hurts consumers, and it hurts America. And corporate greed is alive and well in the auto industry. You know, last fall, we achieved life-changing gains in our strike at the Big Three. We even won a commitment to reopen a closed plant not too far from here. We were able to do that thanks to the support of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the thousands of auto workers that went on strike. But a year later, one company wants to go back on their commitments in our contract. And let me be clear, Stellantis must keep the promises they made to America in our union contract. And the UAW will take whatever action necessary at Stellantis or any other corporation to stand up and hold corporate America accountable. And when the UAW stands up, we know who stands with us and who stands against us. Donald Trump laughs about firing workers who go on strike. And Kamala Harris stands shoulder to shoulder with workers when they're on strike. And that's the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump the scab. Trump is pushing divide and conquer tactics of the rich. It's the oldest trick in the book. They want to blame the frustrations of working class people. They want to take those frustrations, they want to blame it on race. They want to blame it on LGBTQ plus people. They want to blame it on some destitute and desperate person at the border. They do that because they want working class people to be divided and to focus and keep the focus off the one true enemy, corporate greed. The rich think we're stupid, but working class Americans see this for what it is. This is our generation's defining moment. So I have a question for you. Are you ready to stand up, speak up, and show up and put Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the White House? We need a defender of the working class in the White House. Someone who is one of us and someone who knows how to fight. And that fighter is the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris.
That was Shawn Fain, president of the United Auto Workers, speaking at the Democratic National Convention that was held in Chicago a couple of weeks ago. And just an opportunity to speak to power and speak to the American people, you and me, the voter. So we're going to probably listen to what was said to the RNC by O'Brien. He called out the RNC, the Republicans who oppose unions and big corporations, in his remarks at the Republican National Convention. And he drew some mixed reactions from the crowd, of course, being the Republican Party, who has been in the pockets, lobbying in the pockets of big business, who want to threaten workers, who even talk about unionizing. And so the battle has always been against the trade unions coming from the right, as we're seeing a right-wing party in Germany rise up again since World War II and really raising fears of the past And based on this need to divide workers, the anti-immigrant fervor in Germany is all about race and is picking up fervor at this election today. And the party is probably going to have a hard time getting any partners who say in Germany they won't govern with that right-wing party. So this kind of invective politics is happening in Europe and here in the United States from those who study this right-wing motion. We see the handwriting on the wall. We see history repeating itself in a lot of ways, so it's important that we hear speeches like this and that people stay on top of the agenda, way workers are trying to be organized. That's why it's important that not at all the workers' president speaks. But when the Teamsters president, who's trying to build relations with the Republican Party, it's going to be interesting to see how that relationship pans out. But, this is a time of changing political stripes in the United States and possibly on the globe as the battle between the past and the future is really underway at the moment. There is also a general strike going on in Israel that's of interest to a lot of people. We'll get to that. But some of the other worker strikes that are happening around the country here in the United States, and the fears of workers based on the politics they are hearing in this country right now. We are hearing a lot of talk about federal workers who are worried about the upcoming election. They're worried about whether or not it's still close enough for a Trump regime to return, because they worried over Trump's plans to send some of them elsewhere. And, it's not beyond the pale to wonder about what is happening in the minds of these right-wing leaders. But workers are being uprooted from their jobs, have returned to federal workers who have long been the economic backbone of the nation's capital and its suburbs. And of course, we hear a lot about Project 2025 and how it is planning to gut the federal government. Has been part of the agenda for quite some time. These are real fears of workers being uprooted from their job. Federal workers worried about being uprooted if the Trump administration returns. About 75 people were going to be relocated to Kansas City, Missouri, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture administrator. Less than 40 actually moved, but a rush process that failed to consider the need to find homes, jobs for spouses, and schools for children prompted some people to retire, according to the Department of Agriculture administrator. She said some took other federal jobs, and that hurt the agency in the end. And now, with Trump proposing the relocation of up to 100,000 federal jobs from Virginia and Maryland and the District of Columbia under his Agenda 47 plan. 47, of course, would be the number of that particular president. He'll go from 45 to 47 if he's reelected, but Agenda 47 concerns about being abruptly, have workers concerns about being abruptly moved, and are again troubling these federal workers. The Republican proposal stirs anxiety in the midst of an unusually competitive U.S. Senate race in heavily Democratic Maryland that could determine control of the Senate, and even the Republican candidate calling the plans crazy. The Republican candidate in Maryland calling those plans Agenda 47 crazy. All of this relocation of workers or fears of being relocated as a federal worker. And federal workers also worried about, as I said, the Project 2025, as I said, it's a proposed overhaul of the federal government. So that makes these plans, these fears, very real in the minds of federal workers who have already seen some people be relocated, as we saw in the Department of Agriculture, and really hurt that department. The fears of AI here on this Labor Day. Don't know if those fears are really as bad based on this story, artificial intelligence, they're saying that it's beginning to allow a lot of employers to automate functions long performed by human workers. And, so that always raised fears of robots taking your jobs, technology taking your jobs. But some people are seeing that it may not take jobs. It may actually not be a job killer, but instead technology might turn out to be more like a major technological, may be more like a breakthrough. The steam engine, the electricity itself, the internet, those were all breakthroughs, and that it eliminates some jobs while creating others, and probably making workers more productive in general, and the eventual benefit of themselves, their employers, in the economy. Of course, the question is always about fair wages. But also want to hear from you. 813-239-9663 is the number to call. We could listen to comments from the Teamsters president later, but I want to hear from you. So let's go to the telephone lines. 813-239-9663 is the number to call. 813-239-9663. Or if you want to write a comment by email, just send it to dj@wmnf.org. This is Community Speaks. I'm your host, Patrick Mobile, here on this Labor Day, just talking with you. So let's see what this caller from Chicago has to say. Is that Raya or Ria? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Mr. Mobile?
Yes.
Yes, sir. This is Raya calling. Hi. And, I really appreciate, this discussion, especially on Memorial Day. And, the whole question of, the one thing you were just talking about with the AI.
Yes.
It's really, it's like every time something new is introduced, kind of like when your old TV wouldn't work anymore because they took the landlines of whatever they made it, whatever they call
those
that.
Analog lines to digital.
Yeah, and it's once they do it and we let them do it, it's done. They just take more things away, and that's the thing that I have experienced. I'm sure a lot of people, including the medical system and how it's affecting all the, nurses, doctors, technicians, all this stuff, as well as all the way down the line. And that's, a concern, just the whole internet controls that they're putting on everything. You don't know who's actually talking to you. Or, I told places, do not call me with a robot about my personal information, because you can tell. But I just really wanted to express a lot of appreciation for you. And I'm also, part of the Uhuru movement since 1982. And we love y'all, WMNF, and just wanted to remind everybody, when you talk about workers' rights, all workers and people, the trial of the century starts tomorrow in Tampa. The federal government making it a crime for black people and white people who unite and any other nationality to talk about the truth. Free speech, basic constitutional rights, and you all have been covering it so great. But I just wanted you and, anybody listening to just know they scheduled it during holidays, all this stuff deliberately, and they refuse to release documents, information, and they think they're going to get away with it. They murdered Malcolm X. They murdered the Black Panthers. They murdered, Fred Hampton, even back at the Garvey, and they cannot get away with this, and the world's watching.
They definitely
You know about it. Amalia Shatella, Penny Hess, Jesse Neville, trying to say they're pawns of Russia? Give me a break. You know, nobody believes that. For speaking out for reparations to African people. It's an attack on free speech. Supporters will be rallying outside the courthouse, 801 North Florida Ave. It begins at 8, and people could get more info at handsoffofu.org. But just want to say, in the context of the whole question of big government, whether it's Democrat, Republican, it's like the key thing is the people, you and all the people, is where the power lies. AI is never going to beat that. And, you know, just really love you and support and really appreciate it. And that was my comment.
All right. Thank you, Raya. Thank you, and for reminding us of that upcoming trial with the Uhurus. Of course, that's going to be very interesting to find out just what the case the government is making. We'll get the truth about the trial, and of course, we have been covering it here, and we'll be covering that trial here at WMNF. We are listening to Community Speaks here on your non-commercial radio station, WMNF, and this is Labor Day. I've been talking about some labor issues, some fears of workers. Will workers become more productive in this era of AI? And will this next election, if we go backwards to the Trump regime, will federal workers have more to fear, especially in the face of Project 47 and Project 2025 to dismantle the government? Will workers fear losing their jobs, be forced into early retirement? We're talking about federal workers. And will the president defend workers who want to unionize from private corporations who, like Elon Musk's X and Tesla, who want to fire striking workers? And hotel workers are on strike on this Labor Day weekend. More than 10,000 workers at 25 U.S. hotels are on strike after choosing Labor Day weekend to amplify their demands for higher pay, fair workloads, and the reversal of COVID-era cuts. This was a union called Unite Here Union, and they said on that 200 workers at the Hilton Baltimore Inner Harbor were the latest to walk off the job. And nearly half of the striking housekeepers and other hospitality workers in Honolulu, thousands of others are striking in Boston, San Francisco, and Seattle. The strikes targeting Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt hotels are set to last 1 to 3 days. Unionized housekeepers want to reinstate automatic daily room cleaning, saying they have unmanageable workloads or a decline in income, and that's certainly unfair. You get it, workload piles up on you, but your pay doesn't pile up. This is a union, Unite Here Union, which represents striking housekeepers and other hospitality workers. Said 200 workers right now at the Hilton Baltimore are on strike, but nearly half of the striking workers, 5,000 in Honolulu and other western states, at least a total of 15,000 workers have voted to authorize this strike, which could soon spread to other cities, including Connecticut, Oakland, California, and Providence, Rhode Island. So we're going to probably see more striking hospitality workers and during the holiday season. And this is what Labor Day triggers is the holiday season. This is perfect time to press their case. And the hotel guests are no longer asking for daily room cleaning. And I guess a lot of people are in solidarity with hospitality workers, especially unionized housekeepers. And as they say, they want to reinstate these workloads in major hotel chains who can afford to respond to these workers. 813-239-9663 is the number to call. Just want to take more your telephone calls and read more of your emails as we're talking about strike actions going on in the country, but also in the world. The world has been really reeling. We've seen our college students over the end of the school year last year and all during the summer this year, fighting and protesting in support of human rights for Palestinians, Palestinian human rights to be recognized in the face of what's piling up as genocide numbers in the Israeli conflict against Hamas. So a union in Israel has called for a general strike, and as we were waking up this morning to the news that this strike had happened, as Israelis poured into the streets in response to this call for a general strike in Israel. There might be a lot of you who have comments about what is happening there, but this is one of the largest trade unions in Israel. I think it's called the Histadrut. This is a trade union which pressured the government by calling this general strike today. And this was the first general strike since the October 7th Hamas attack that started the war, and it aimed to shut down or disrupt major sectors of the economy, including banking, healthcare, and of course the country's main airport. There's a mass outpouring, people responding to this trade union's call for a general strike. So we're seeing the courts have spoken in Israel saying that this has to end by 2:30 today, local time, their time. So we'll see if they violate that or will it start to die down. But the message has been sent to Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, that because more hostages have been killed, there had 3 of the 6 hostages were found dead, including an Israeli American, reportedly scheduled to be released in the first phase of a ceasefire proposal discussed back in July. And this fueled fury and frustration among the protesters, who are saying that Netanyahu doesn't seem like he wants a deal. Doesn't seem like he wants a ceasefire negotiations to go on. He's calling for total victory against Hamas, even if a deal for the hostages has to wait. So Israelis are responding to that these are considered failures. First, failure to prevent the attacks on October 7th in the first place, in such a large-scale attack, given the Iron Dome and all of that. They were able to beat the Iron Dome, and despite all of this war-making talk and, coming from the right wing, and especially the Prime Minister Netanyahu, he still failed. He was a failure in the end. And so now there's an outpouring of Israelis marching in the streets, general strike, to really send a message that this economy could suffer if you continue this process. So the message has been sent, but Hamas has offered to release hostages in return for an end to the war and the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and the release of a large number of the Palestinian prisoners, including high-profile militants. So, we'll see, what happens. But apparently a lot of protesters are concerned that every time we get close to a deal, Netanyahu changes the terms, raises the bar, but still not getting any hostages freed. And in fact, because of his intransigence, some of them are getting killed. So funerals have begun with more outrage. Body was, people are having to bury the dead, and it's causing a lot of anger. The President of the United States is trying to work out a deal, but it's even frustrating the President, Joe Biden, adding pressure to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, saying that he isn't doing enough to reach a deal for a ceasefire and the hostage release. And, so that's where the world is right now. The president is saying the prime minister is not doing enough, and now he has a general strike in the streets. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis have poured into the streets to show their grief and anger at these events. So let's hear more from you, what you have to say. 813-239. This is Labor Day weekend. Today is Labor Day, so it's all holidays here with you. It's always interesting to have these conversations with you. And of course, given the international situation and the fact that we're in an election year, there are a lot of people concerned about disinformation and the meddling in the election. And so with the Hoover 3 trial comes up, that's going to be the question du jour, is disinformation, misinformation, free speech? You can have your opinions. Should you be punished for that opinion? And so the questions are going to be front and center in trial as we continue to see that people want to talk before the trial, to put their defense out there. The government is not going to talk. So there's not going to be any way of having that conversation from both sides here on the air, but we'll certainly do our best to cover it, because I'm curious as to the information that the government has on them. But, we'll see if they are pawns of Russia or not. And there's one person who is not being named but lives in Atlanta. He's also been arrested. It's going to be part of the trial. So we'll be watching the whole thing. We'll even watch the Russian operative who is supposedly the person who's at the center of the crime. So this is going to be an ongoing discussion. Interesting trial. 813-239-9663. This is Community Speaks, your opportunity to speak. My name is Patrick Mobili, your host. The DJ's spaceship stands ready to take your telephone calls, and we'll take your emails. DJ@WMNF.org. DJ@WMNF.org. So it's always interesting to hear from activists. Today is Labor Day. We want to hear from workers. Are you striking? Do you want to start a union on your job? Do you feel threatened for doing that, which would be illegal? And as I said, a lot of people are concerned about an upcoming, if Trump wins the election, will their jobs be safe? Federal workers' jobs be safe? So all of those issues are on the table. 813-239-9663 is the number to call if you want to join the discussion here on Labor Day, here on WMNF. Give us a call, 813-239-9663, or you can write me an email, dj@WMNF.org. You can call 813-239-WMNF, 813-239-9663. So one person has written an email, wouldn't put it past, I think we're talking about Netanyahu in this email. Wouldn't put it past him. They'll give orders to kill the hostages to reignite U.S. support. And I don't know how that process would work, but the man's fighting for his own life and cares not about those of others. Everyone and everything is expendable when a desperate man is in survival mode. And that's from Teresa. Thank you, Teresa. That's interesting point. Would people do the unthinkable just to maintain their power? We're seeing evidence of that in capitals around the world. That's exactly what we're seeing from the right wing here in the United States. People do anything to cling to power. And there's a general strike in the streets, though, in Israel right now. So I don't know how successful or how intelligent that move is right now, given the fact that the Israeli economy is struggling in the face of this war and the pressures of this war. And some people, including the United States, will begin to think Biden has already decided that certain offensive weapons won't be given to Israel, maybe defensive ones. But it's going to be an even bigger campaign for Netanyahu to continue to gain support if he doesn't change his ways and stop this being intransigent when it comes to negotiating the ceasefire and hostages, even just for humanitarian ceasefire. And of course, there's a campaign right now, temporary ceasefire, to vaccinate the children of Gaza, for polio, which is scary. So, and of course, they need to take care of that problem. Don't want polio to get out of hand. 813-239-9663 is the number to call. I know it's a holiday, and maybe you're all out about having barbecue. If so, call me and tell me where, because I need some barbecue. But 813-239-9663 is the number to call if you want to talk about workers issues, and the general strike, and even the use of general strike politically. Will governments listen, especially right-wing governments? Do they listen? Do they care about things like mass protests, or do they work to try to counter message the protesters? 813-239-9663 is the number to call here on this Labor Day, as we are getting ready to get out and make room to get back to the music. Blanny Whalen got to make room for Blanny to come on in with It's the Music Monday and take you through your Labor Day afternoon. And I always sit back and relax listening to Blanny. So we got to get to that next hour. But right now, you're tuned to Community Speaks here on a Labor Day, talking about a lot of issues that are animating workers and animating all of us politically right now, the international situation, as well as fears of workers especially from a right-wing government at this election. Workers have to concern themselves about being relocated or being forced into early retirement and illegally fired from corporations who will feel emboldened by a MAGA president if that happens. So the UAW speaks with the Democrats, saying that that's what they are supporting this election season because of all of those fears. 813-239-9663. Looks like our friend Jeanette from St. Pete is on the line as we head towards the end of the program here on Community Speaks. We're going to see what Jeanette has to offer here on Community Speaks. Go ahead. From St. Pete.
Good show today. I just wanted to say that I really like listening to the speech that you played. I think it's weird how half of rural America or blue-collar America wants Trump when he is trying to hurt them constantly. And I like, that he was talking about corporate greed, because so many people want to ignore what's really going on with the corporations.
Yeah.
And I want to mention that I was in Publix today, and I said something about how something was very expensive, and a guy who worked at Publix, Publix is probably tons of corporate greed going on in that store, because they're everywhere. He said, well, hopefully with the election coming up, prices are going to change, or the prices will get better. And I'm thinking, he thinks that the only reason we have inflation is because it's the president's fault. That's how a lot of these people around here think. They just go,
it's shorthand.
Everything is expensive. Well, it's the president's fault. And I'm thinking, after I left the store, I was thinking, why would they just blame the president? And why do they honestly think that because if Trump gets back in office, all the prices are going to automatically go back down again? Like, inflation's going to disappear. Right. And that's what they think. And I don't get that, how they're just so easy it's just so easy for them to say, okay, well, everything's expensive. It's Biden's fault. And that means it's going to be Kamala Harris is going to do the same and screw up our economy. But I think our economy was screwed up before because of COVID, before Trump ever got out of office.
Right, which he had a lot of problems responding to that. And then
he didn't respond to it to save any lives. He didn't care about people. Right. Especially in Florida, everybody was down here because nobody had to wear a mask down here. Nobody cared.
I saw
like people didn't care, but just a lot of people who didn't care could come here and do what they want.
Right, which should, raise a lot of concerns about, the logic that people are going through right now because, you want responsible people in power.
Of course.
And not people that's going to politicize even something like public health crisis.
Exactly. Or like, dead soldiers in the cemetery.
Right. Wow.
So, yeah, I just wanted to make that point. It's like just because inflation is bad right now, I mean, there's so many different factors of why inflation is bad. You can't just say, oh, it's Biden. I mean, that's what Trump says. It's all because of Biden. And when I was in office, we had great economy, but that's not true.
Right. Well, I mean, saying those things lacks analysis. And
no evidence.
With no evidence in that, and that's how they govern. And we fear they're setting up that kind of thing to maintain power or to undermine the election. They're putting people in place that even if Trump loses, they're going to vote for, they're going to send electors to him. So the Electoral College.
Well, they're going to fight if they lose, tooth and nail.
All right, so we have to be on top of that agenda.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say that I'm really praying every day that he doesn't get back in office. I just can't imagine. Right. I don't think I could stay in the United States any longer.
Yeah, and this time is on us. It's really up to us because we know what we're getting.
And people want to say, "Oh, we don't watch the news and we don't want to talk about politics and we don't care." Down here in Florida, they are like that. So I'm just kind of hitting my head against the wall. It's like, don't you care about what happens to you?
Right.
And I just want to say one more thing. I really sense so much anxiety and tension when I go out in public. I mean, I just sense so much weirdness. It's just not like it used to be around here.
Yeah, we have to find out, how to get things back on track. Hopefully the young people are not going to follow this current crop of maggots.
Well,
going that direction.
If their parents they follow, and if their parents are maggots, then they're going to be pretty much. Not too many people are thinking for themselves anymore, and it's really sad.
Right, and are actively fighting against truth.
Exactly, and also the fascism is just getting out of control. Where I live, it's really bad.
Right.
You cannot speak up for yourself anymore.
I mean, we got you and I, people who understand fascism. We have to start calling it out because a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, but you just say the word and they just look at you like blank stare. It's like you need to do a lesson to teach them. It's just like, just remember World War II, and if you haven't been born yet, go to school and learn the history before they take those lessons out of the schools too.
Which is, I think, the agenda. That's part of the agenda.
That's their agenda. They're going to try to just brainwash the world. It's going to be like that book, 451, Fahrenheit 451. Everybody should read that book.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said the title right, but that's the book.
Fahrenheit 9/11. I think
Fahrenheit, yeah.
So, yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a good book. Everybody should read that.
Yeah, it was a forward thinking and really talks about where we're at right now, actually. Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you for calling.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for your show. Bye.
Thank you. 813-239-9663. Maybe in the last few seconds, we'll listen to what the Teamster president told the GOP because he was calling them out for opposing the unions, and just listen to some of the reactions he got in the crowd as we head towards the end of the show, Community Speaks. We're going to listen to Teamsters President Sean O'Brien talking to the GOP. What are the issues that are apparent with you?
Sean O'Brien, General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. I'd like to give my peeps from the greatest state in the nation, Massachusetts, some props. What's up? First, I want to thank the hardworking Teamsters and union members here in Milwaukee who play vital roles in the building and operations of this convention. I also want to thank President Donald Trump for opening the RNC's doors to the Teamsters Union and inviting me to speak before you tonight. I travel all across this country and meet with my members every week. You know what I see? An American worker being taken for granted. Workers being sold out to big banks, big tech, corporates, and the elite. And I'm not the only one who sees this. Everyday families see it. The American people aren't stupid. They know the system is broken. We all know how Washington is run. Working people have no chance of winning this fight. That's why I'm here today. Because I refuse to keep doing the same things my predecessors did. Today, the Teamsters are here to say we are not beholden to anyone or any party.
Those were comments by Teamsters President to the GOP. So we'll just leave it there for right now. But as I said, this is Community Speaks. We're going to get ready to get back to the music. Blaney Whalen is going to come at you with It's the Music Monday here on a Labor Day afternoon. And so, you know, this has been an opportunity to talk to you about workers' issues, workers' fears right now. And there are some things that, you know, the election is raising a lot of issues in the minds of federal workers. We'll get back to talking about that and the impact of AI on workers' jobs, on your jobs. Those are the main issues, not, you know, pitting workers against one another, but empowering workers and not make people fear for the loss of their jobs just for wanting to unionize. And so this has been what is at the root of fascist policies ever since World War II, is to go after the trade unionists, go after the socialists, go after the people who are there to try to empower the working classes. So we're going to pick up more on those conversations, but this has been the Labor Day conversation to have. And of course, the general strike in Israel, we'll be watching to see what the outcome there will be. But keep it tuned here for the rest of the afternoon as we get back to the music, starting with It's the Music Monday coming your way next here on WMNF Tampa. But first, we're going to get some news updates, more news here on this Labor Day from National Public Radio News. Keep it tuned. You're tuned to WMNF Tampa. This has been Community Speaks. I'm your host, Patrick Mobili, and of course, I'll be back next Monday for another edition of Community Speaks.